Hi VC, how you doing? It's Gordon at I Dig Vinyl here, back with another video. This time I am continuing my voyage of discovery through the 1980s, and I'm going to focus on 1981 today. 1981, it's a year that I had turned the ripe old age of 5. Starting off at primary school, worried about if I've got enough crayons in, what's in the lunchbox, things like that. Not too aware of the wider world, and that's the thing that I've been wanting to sort of find out a wee bit more about is in the course of looking at the records that are in my collection. So I've kind of gone back to look at a wee bit of social history as well, and it's been interesting for me to have a look at the world that I was sort of wandering around in, completely oblivious, whilst I guess the musical landscape was changing alongside the sort of political one as well. So I'll touch on that whilst I show off the records that I've pulled out just now. So basically, 1981. This is the year where there's a lot of racial tension, certainly in the UK, maybe less so across the Atlantic, but certainly in UK there are riots in places like Brixton, Toxteth, Moss Side. Unemployment really starts to go on the rise. The policies of Thatcher and the Tory party start to sort of bite in terms of monetarism and what it does to employment. And there's a backdrop, I guess, in 1981, which sets the tone for much of the 80s in terms of strikes, unrest, um, unemployment on the rise, and so on. So, privatisation, those kind of things. So, I wonder to what extent that's reflected in the music as well. So, I'm going to talk about that. 1981 for me, having looked at 1980 recently, it seems like a quieter year in terms of music. 1980 was just something spectacular. There's so much going on in that year. It seemed like the end of an era and the start of so many other kind of branches of music. You could trace it to 1980. So 1981 for me seems a little bit quieter. It might just be my collection myself. Biggest selling album in 1981, it was Queen's Greatest Hits. So a reminder that the charts, they love the familiar classics, and it's something that looks clearly to the past there. The records I'll show today, they're a broad mix. We've got a bit of post-punk, a bit of LA pop energy. I've got a wee bit of ska, Caribbean infused grooves, and one or two albums that I think certainly paved the way for a lot of amazing indie music that's going to come later on. So I hope you enjoy these 7 albums. They capture the best of my 1980s or 1981 collection, that's for sure, and they're certainly a broad mix. So here we go. Going to start off with a pair of records that maybe don't look on the surface level being hugely linked, but I felt that in some ways you'll see what I'm doing here, I think, maybe. So starting off with the amazing soul singer that is Millie Jackson, and her album from 1981, which is called Just a Little Bit Country. This is the only Millie Jackson album I've got, so I don't have a great frame of reference to talk about, but I do know, having heard her in various sources, that she's a really distinct, multi-talented, very, very gutsy, funny soul singer. And this one's interesting to me because I don't know how many times you'll really come across a, a soul artist, a black soul singer, deliberately going down the country avenue as she does here. Beyonce, anyone? So what you've got here is a fantastic artist, lots of great songs. Not all necessarily country, although that's what it says in the tin, effectively. But beautiful voice, loads of soul in that voice. Catchy songs, thoughtful, reflective, humorous as well. This is a female singer who uses a lot of humour in her lyrics as well. Talks about, if you don't like it, you can kiss my ass, basically, which I love the I love the I love the sentiment there. I'm going to pair it up with this other album, which you might be rather familiar with, from 1981. It's got a weird thing added to the cover. I don't know what that is. But Rolling Stones, Tattoo You, and Millie Jackson. I'll talk about them as a little pair. So Tattoo You, this is the Stones and Millie Jackson, I think, doing what established artists would sort of need to do to survive. I.e., you reach out to different genres, a bit of experimentation there. You kind of capture what's in the, maybe blowing in the wind, so to speak, and you adapt. So that's what both of them are doing. The Rolling Stones one, it's often thought of as the last great Rolling Stones album. I'm not sure if that's true. I certainly think it is a great album. What I'm drawn to with this album is it's actually side 2 itself. Side 1 starts with the classic Start Me Up. So you can see there, just home in the songs. Start Me Up is like made, it's stadium made, it's huge, brilliant riff, everyone knows it, and it went on to introduce so many Rolling Stones live shows as they became just the kind of monster stadium act that they were throughout the 80s. Obviously this is a collection really of a lot of offcuts from years gone by. This is the time where Mick and Keith are really not getting on well. I think their kind of influences are going in different directions at this time as well. There's lots of discussion online and so on about Mick's interested in the disco of that time. He's spending his time in some of the big nightclubs in New York and so on. Keith at this point seems to be hanging out a bit more with the likes of Sly and Robbie, digging a bit more reggae stuff. Keith is relatively, I think he's got away from some of the serious drug problems that were affecting things in the sort of period about 1977 and so on. So it's a Rolling Stones that are evolving. And what I love about this album is side 2. Side 2, not to me massively well-known songs apart from the classic Waiting on a Friend at the end. But I was listening to it recently and it's the song Heaven, which I would just kind of shout out as this is one of my new favourite Rolling Stones tracks. It's one that I haven't listened to properly and digested enough over time. It's what a song that is. Heaven is kind of otherworldly in terms of the ethereal vocals of Mick Jagger. Some of the sort of vibe of that song you can trace back to sort of Satanic Majesties. It's got a bit of psychedelia to it. But then the kind of falsetto as well. It's such a great song. But there's a run of really great songs inside too. Like Worried About You starts off the side 2. That was one that they'd been playing for a few years, way back in 1977, a couple of gigs at El Mocambo when they were called the Cockroaches. There's a great jam version of Worried About You, and it goes all the way through to Waiting on a Friend. It's just a brilliant sort of reflective side to the Stones that I don't get to hear about too often, and it's, I guess, a good example of a band that are looking at how they've got to that point and what comes next, whilst the musical landscape is completely transforming. I love the fact that they called themselves the Cockroaches when they performed at El Mocambo in Canada, because if there ever has been a band that is, all about survival and reinvention, it's the Stones, isn't it? So, and they're still out there now. I actually love the Hackney Diamonds album from a couple of years ago. I think it stands up really well. So they are two examples of artists that are kind of looking backwards. They're changing their style in order to stay, I guess, commercially viable, and I think they do it really, really well. So now what I'll do is I'm going to run through 5 more, and these are albums that are much more kind of representative of a new kind of sound, I would say, in lots of different ways. So, no particular order. I'll go with the Tom Tom Club first of all. So when I showed off some albums from 1980, a real masterpiece was the Talking Heads' Remaining Light, and I was interested to kind of figure out where did this sort of come from. So obviously we've got the bass and percussion from Talking Heads, who happen to be a married couple, and they are off to create the Tom Tom Club's album, The Tom Tom Club. So basically what's going on here is, after Remaining Light is so successful, I read that there was a kind of, after they toured as well, there was a need to generate some more money. I haven't heard this album, but I believe David Byrne then went away to record a solo album. And so what happens is Tina Weymouth and her husband, whose name I have forgotten right now, they decide to go off to the Bahamas, to the great studio out there in Nassau, and they put this together over a period of time. And I really, really like it. It's there's a lot of brilliant sort of dance music happening here. It's quite quirky. It's a little bit weird, and that's all good for me. It does sound to me like it's been recorded out in a sort of sunny environment. There's kind of proto rap in the song. What's it called now? Wordy Rapping Hood, which is really quite funny. What else? Really, really kind of big number is, oh, I can't see the name of it here. Genius of Love, sorry, as well. Instantly recognisable. It's been sampled many, many times by a load of different hip hop artists. So this is a really cool album. I can hear, as I said, a lot of sort of different genres bouncing out of this one, and it's interesting that they are doing this effectively as a side project of Talking Heads. So yeah, it's really cool. It's got that kind of sunny vibe to it. Sounds like a group of people, a collective, having a lot of fun. It's Tina Weymouth, for example, on lead vocals, with three sisters doing backing vocals. Finish with after all the kind of weird and wacky stuff, it finishes with just a lovely cover version of Under the Boardwalk. So that's a good listen. So moving on from that, something very different though. That sounds really sunny. It's one that's it's a good summertime album, I suppose, and I'm talking about it in November. Maybe a similar vein, to be honest with you, is this brilliant album from The Beat. It's mainly an upbeat album, I guess, but I thought it's quite interesting to me that it leans into, obviously, the great sort of ska vibe. There's bits of kind of Afro pop, global grooves coming out of it. Sort of really nice, hypnotic, upbeat tunes. What I thought is interesting though is that, given that the backdrop in Britain at the time, there's a lot of racial tension that's been there, I think, in the big cities in England for several years. Is that The Beat, certainly to me, they kind of preach a kind of unity vibe, which I really like. So there's social commentary going on here of the world, the wider world, but it's definitely all about togetherness as well, I would say. Great album. I really do like The Beat. There's a second album, I think it is, from 81. Big song, Doors of Your Heart, things like that, over and over. Cracking tune as well. Mainly really upbeat, as I said. What happened? Next up, I'm going to totally change the style, and I'll show you the Psychedelic Furs. So this is totally different. What we've got now is an album that it took me a wee while to say I enjoyed it, to be honest with you. I've been listening to it a lot more recently. First few listens to this when I got it, I think it was a little bit put off by the saxophone, to be honest. It's a nice post-punk. There's loads of different sort of textures going on in this one. Very distinctive singing style. Great selection of songs, quite kind of complex music going on, different kinds of playing. It's quite a moody vibe, I guess. The famous one here, you've got Pretty in Pink, which is obviously used in the movie. That's not my kind of favourite song though. I think there's a lot of great tunes on here. I like Dumb Waiters, just to start it off. There's that kind of, I guess there's an anger running through this one. So as I said, great musicianship. Psychedelic Furs, it's the only album I've got of theirs. I can hear a lot of sort of traces of different indie bands that are to come through their music. So I think kind of typical of the time, I would expect it. Kind of art school, indie, post-punk, It suits the times. It's cynical at times. It's stylish all the time. Maybe a little bit of maybe a wee bit of hope in there. Anyway, good album. Something totally different. Again, this time across the Atlantic, and here a brilliant album by the Go-Go's, which is, comparing it to Psychedelic Furs, like, yeah, it does sound like it's recorded an ocean away. Really, really clever, I think. Lots of sunny LA energy, I guess, with some cracking sort of pop numbers like Our Lips Are Sealed and We Got the Beat. But there's a lot of different kind of genres going on here. When I was listening to it the other day, I could actually kind of trace a little bit of what it sounded to me like sort of proto grunge, clever guitar playing. So it's a real blend, a good contrast to some of that darker stuff that I have shown already and I'll show a wee bit more of. Maybe it anticipates obviously it does anticipate some of the pop that's going to come later on. You've got obviously Belinda Carlisle, Jane Wiedlin, who went on to have successful solo careers later on, but this is well crafted, great musicianship, great songwriting, a wee bit of humour in some of their music, multi-talented, great band, I would say, the Go-Go's. Wow, I've gone through this wee bit quicker than I thought. So I'm going to end here with a cracking album. This is the second album by Echo and the Bunnymen, Heaven Up Here. Really, really enjoy this album. It sort of harkens back to the 60s, I would say. There's a kind of psychedelia of bands like The Doors. You can hear it pretty loud and clear. It's hypnotic, it's dark, it's completely immersive, it's catchy as well. There's fantastic guitar playing in particular. I can hear quite complex stuff on guitar that I really enjoy. That sort of anticipates the very, very early U2 sound, I would say, as well as into some of the more jangly stuff of the Smiths, into shoegaze. I can hear all of it in this album, so a brilliant album by the Bunnymen. Ian McCulloch's singing is tremendous. I think this album, of all of the ones that I've shown, to me really kind of captures 1981 in terms of the unrest that's there, the tension that's there, a desire for a bit of escapism and a bit of ambition and reflection too. So I think this is a great album. The song Heaven Up Here, probably my favourite of the album. It's just great. But as a to listen to it in kind of one sitting, I think it's a brilliant piece of work all in. Whoa, so flew through that. 1981, 7 albums, loads of standout tracks there. It's a world in flux. Seeds are being planted there for some brilliant indie to come. There's monster pop whoppers just over the horizon in 1982, and it's funny to think that they're just about to pop out, so to speak. But I did enjoy that sort of blend. 1981 seems to me to be a kind of understated year of music, and it's all started to fertilise and percolate rather nicely for what's to come. So hope you enjoyed it. Love to hear your own musical choices from that particular year. I'm on a voyage of discovery, I have to say. My record collection is expanding, but what I'm trying to do is make sense of it all. So I'm starting to see the connections from one year to another. And as I move off to 1982, there's plenty more to be found. So thanks for watching. Give it a wee message in the comments, a wee like and a subscribe. Take it easy, guys. See you later.